I think that if the Bitcoin community just embraced the idea that Bitcoin is digital property and it's going to coexist with digital currencies issued by the United States or Europe or China, then 99% of all of the resistance and friction just disappears completely. And then what you realize is your debate is with gold, and your debate is with real estate, and your debate is over whether you should buy the S&P index, and it just becomes an investment decision. And then everybody that doesn't want to own Bitcoin because they want to own Apple stock just looks like they like Apple stock, right? Like if you want to invest in a VC venture, if you want to invest in a hotel, if you want to invest in a stock, if you want to invest in a collection of Picassos, these are all just different investment decisions that you made in lieu of buying Bitcoin. If you characterize it like that, then it becomes a lot less controversial, a lot less heated, and just step back and let the battle of the currencies take place between the currencies. I mean, the real battle right now is between the dollar and the peso and the naira and the RMB and the, et cetera, all the currencies. And there's no reason, if Bitcoin doubled every year for the next decade, it still wouldn't be but a small fraction of the money in the world. Right? So for the next decade, we could simply be good citizens, watch digital property grow from being 1 out of 500 trillion dollars, right? We're 1/500th of the property in the world or something like that. Why not just become 20% of the property in the world, become 200 trillion, if we're 200 trillion and there's 1,000 trillion, right, we'll be 20%. So at the same time, like if I'm gold, it's like the gold people, they want us to agree that we're both sound money and the enemy is the Fed. Okay, well, like, let's think about that for a second. I'm going to basically give the gold bugs 90% of the money. They're going to be worth 10 trillion. I'm worth 1 trillion. And we're both going to collectively agree that we want to topple 100 million businesses, all the accounting systems in every nation state in the world together. Like, why would I even bother, right? Why not simply just destroy gold? Why not just take the 10 trillion of gold and go from 1 trillion to 10 trillion? And how about, try walking into the boardroom of Disney Corp or Coca-Cola and telling them that we've decided that we stand for toppling nation states and the currency, and what we want them to do is buy Bitcoin. Like, I've said this before, you literally could line up everybody in every corporation in the world, hold a gun to their head and say, you have to stop taking dollars and switch your accounting systems. And you have to shoot them all. Because even if they wanted to, they couldn't, right? Nobody can change the fact that the world runs on dollars and the accounting systems are wired for currency. So we're picking a Pyrrhic battle. Like we're going to war over nothing. Because if you just understand Bitcoin as property and you accept the fact that, okay, well, what's the negative? The negative is if I transfer it and I sell it, I have to pay tax on it. That's the negative. What's the positive? You're not supposed to sell it. Like the positive, like the worst thing you could possibly do, in my opinion, is encourage people to give up their Bitcoin. So it's not a problem that you have to pay a tax if you just never pay it. The current tax code implies that you should buy it and hold it forever. And the current tax code of currency implies you should get rid of it as soon as you can, because there's no cost to get rid of it. So if we simply looked at the world like that, then we would stop wasting so much energy, right? If you've looked at every single banker, every time they say, well, is Bitcoin, is it a currency? Well, I mean, their answer is no, it's not a currency. Jerome Powell can't admit it's a currency. Christina Lagarde saying it's not a currency. And then the Bitcoin community oftentimes recoils in horror, like, yes, we are. Yes, we are. Why do you want to be? Like, why can't you actually be property worth $10 million a coin and not be a currency. If I told you, you could basically go from $0 to $10 million a coin, and everybody will help you along the way. Every company, every government will help you along the way to become worth $10 million a coin. Or you can fight with everybody, right? The entire way. And if you succeed, you'll have toppled every government and every political group and every company and destroyed the entire 20th century economy, but you'll have your currency. Like what's left, right? Like if I rip every single company to zero and I destroy every country and every political system, you'll have your currency. But what are you going to buy with it when every company is non-existent and every government doesn't exist, right? You can't even buy bullets to defend yourself in the, in the post-apocalyptic anarchy that follows, because bullets get manufactured by companies that use accounting systems that run on dollars, right? So I guess my point really is, it's not a battle to fight. Like ultimately, there's a view. The view is, well, the politicians have too much power, and they use the currency, right, to abuse that power. Yeah, right. And the solution is, you basically demonetize everything in the world that's in the physical realm, and you demonetize all the currency derivatives, and you just do it gradually in such a way that every company and every government that's smart enough to buy into it benefits from it. And then one day you wake up, and instead of 60% or 70% of the wealth in the world being a currency derivative, it's 10%. And, when 10% of the wealth in the world is a currency derivative and the rest is like digital property, then inflation won't be so much a problem anymore. Right? In fact, very shortly, right? Inflation's not going to be like people in Venezuela don't have to worry about the government forcing them to hold the bolivar and inflating it, because the bolivar has already lost so much of its energy that at this point, when the government can no longer print the money and inflate it, right, what you really have to worry about is the government just seizing your property at the barrel of a gun, right? They're just going to expropriate it, right? Any government that prints too much currency eventually loses their currency privileges, their currency collapses. And so what you've got is this rippling succession of currency collapses. And eventually what happens is you get down to like 3 or 4 currencies, and every single year the currency is 10% less of the economy than it was before. And at some point, at some point we'll be down to the CNY and the USD, maybe there's like 4 currencies left. And instead of how much money is denominated in USD right now, you've got all the USD, you've got every other currency pegged to the USD, you've got $100 trillion of sovereign bonds or whatever. Then you've got $50 trillion worth of currency derivatives that are equities. Then you've got all of the commercial real estate, which has got rents that are capped at CPI, so they're currency derivatives. So if I stacked everything up, what I have like $400 trillion worth of currency derivatives all pegged to the dollar, about. And if Bitcoin grows to be 100 trillion to 200 trillion, then you would have 100 trillion in currency derivatives pegged to the dollar. And now the ratios shift, right? And as the ratios shift, then inflation gets to be less of an issue because the currency collapses. When do politicians realize their currency, they can't inflate the currency? I think that in Turkey and in Argentina and in Venezuela, they're figuring it out right now, right?
You'll be astonished. In Lebanon, nobody has any idea that inflation is a problem. It's truly shocking. Nobody thinks the money printing is a problem. People see that all the money in their hands has been printed in the last 2 years. The money supply has gone up about 8-fold in the last 2 years. 8-fold increase. So about 700% increase in the last 2 years. And you will almost never hear anybody mention inflation as being part of the problem. It's astonishing. But yeah, you're right. Eventually they're going to figure it out. It's just...
when their currency collapses, right? When your currency, for example, what would be the market to issue Argentine sovereign debt right now in New York City? right? Not high,
not
right?
very big, no.
Not very high. So at that point, you have to switch to taxation or rationalization, right? You have to start to rationalize your expenditures down.
And physical printing is what they're doing.
Becomes taxation, or you go to rationalization, or you go to expropriation and confiscation. We're going to get there, and when that happens, the result is a function of lots of things that are above my pay grade. But if I was sitting in any country right now and I wanted to do the best thing for the world, I wouldn't say, buy Bitcoin so that we can defeat your central bank. I would say buy Bitcoin because it's better than buying a building. Right? I mean, if I was sitting in Turkey and I was giving a presentation and Erdogan was listening, my message would be, you can invest in a building or a company, but Bitcoin is probably a better investment. It's even better investment than gold because Bitcoin is pure digital energy. It'll be good for Turkey. It'll be good for you. It'll be good for the Turkish lira. Don't you want everybody in Turkey to get rich? I mean,
yeah.
Like Bitcoin is an export. Digital energy is an export industry, whereas investing in a building or a piece of land in Istanbul is a domestic industry. So I think that it doesn't matter who you are. Everybody pretty much gets the idea that we're better off if we have 21st century clean export industries that are generating huge cash flows or huge benefits to the domestic economy. So I would say pair it as it is property by law, and the only way it's a legal definition that's defined by the Communist Central Party, by the IRS, by the EU central, or by the EU in Brussels. You can either embrace that and say it's property. Okay, it's better property. Let's go ahead and replace the other $500 trillion of property with a better property. Why don't we grow 500 to 1? And somewhere around 200 or 300 to 1, we can come back to our political debate about whether we like the idea that governments can have a currency. Like, if you don't like the idea that the government gets to designate the currency, well, you can run for office and you can try to change that. Right. But at this point in time, the likelihood that you're going to get the EU or the Chinese, party or the United States to abandon their currencies is next to nothing. And all you're going to do is you're going to divert 99% of your energy from something constructive. And the constructive thing is to stop people from making mistakes of buying a second rental property as an investment, or buying gold,
right? Or a checking account,
or keeping a checking account, right?
Or a saving account, which is the same thing these days. Yeah,
you don't need to be the enemy of the people or the enemy of the government to promote digital property as a better idea.
I must say you've kind of won me over a lot on this regard. You may not be able to tell from my Twitter and my public pronouncements, but I sympathize with the idea that we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. It's still a very long way away, and at this point, I think the comparative advantages of Bitcoin is just that it is a much better form of property and a much better store of value, and the political implications will come later. And I think the engineering side of me sometimes begins to think we're better off just focusing on this engineering aspect of it rather than just thinking about the political implications, because the political implications are just going to get people in trouble, which we don't want, especially when if you're holding the royal flush in your hands and that this is going to win eventually. Whatever happens, it is just going to win out against all the other kind of combinations of cards that you could come up with. Then you don't need to be going around telling everybody that you're going to be winning. In fact, generally, it's a very bad tactic to celebrate victory before it happens. And I can see the point that, yes, I think you're absolutely correct on the demonetization of gold. It's something that I think is, it doesn't really appeal much to me, being a hard money person, Austrian economics, but I think it's reality at this point. And I think clinging on to gold was probably the biggest financial mistake that I've ever made. I even after I heard about Bitcoin for many years, I still considered no, it's still tiny. Gold is the big deal. Gold is the real thing. There have been pretenders against gold before, but I think this is it. It's over. I think Bitcoin is only about a tenth of gold at this point, and that's just within throwing distance by Bitcoin standards. So it's clear that gold is being demonetized. It's not rising as everything is rising. You keep pointing out that lumber and copper and nickel have been rising more than gold. And so that's an enormous $10 trillion market of people who still save money in gold and still buy gold. And I think it's at this point, you may as well be holding fiat currency. In fact, you are in a sense holding fiat currency because central banks hold about a sixth of all the world's gold. So you're just basically pumping central bank bags when you're buying gold. That's the reality of it. They control the market for gold. They control the market for settlement and clearance of gold. They won't let there be free markets in gold so that you could have a bank built around gold. Moving gold around is still enormously expensive. It can't compete with fiat or Bitcoin in terms of moving it around. And in a global economy, that's a death sentence. And I think in the last century, you could have resisted that death sentence because you didn't have an alternative to gold, but now we do. We have Bitcoin.